Long before Jamestown or Plymouth Rock, the English dreamed of a permanent settlement in the New World. It was the late 1500s, and Spain had already claimed vast wealth and influence from its colonies in the Americas. England, under Queen Elizabeth I, sought to rival this power. In 1587, more than 100 men, women, and children set sail to establish a colony on Roanoke Island, off the coast of present-day North Carolina. They hoped to carve out a foothold for England, a new life, and perhaps riches. But when supply ships returned 3 years later, the colony had vanished without a trace. No bodies, no signs of struggle, only a single word carved into a post: CROATOAN. The fate of the Roanoke colonists remains unsolved to this day. Part 1. England's Ambition. The 16th century was an age of exploration, conquest, and empire. Spain had established colonies across the Caribbean, Mexico, and South America, reaping immense wealth in gold and silver. England, eager to challenge Spain's dominance, turned its eyes westward. Sir Walter Raleigh, a favorite of Queen Elizabeth, received a charter in 1584 to establish a colony in the Americas. Raleigh never set foot in the New World himself. Instead, he organized expeditions to scout land, build relations with native tribes, and establish bases that could one day rival Spain. Roanoke Island, part of the Outer Banks of modern North Carolina, was chosen. Part 2. The first attempt, 1585. The first Roanoke colony was established in 1585 under Ralph Lane. About 100 men arrived, building a small fort and attempting to survive on the island. But they faced immense challenges: limited food supplies, harsh weather, difficult relations with local Algonquian tribes. Lane's men relied heavily on natives for food, and tensions soon boiled over. Skirmishes broke out, alliances collapsed, and survival became tenuous. When Sir Francis Drake visited in 1586 after raiding Spanish ships, the struggling colonists abandoned Roanoke and sailed back to England with him. The first attempt had failed. Part 3. The second attempt, 1587. Undeterred, Raleigh tried again. This time, the goal was not a temporary outpost but a permanent settlement. In May 1587, about 115 settlers, including women and children, set sail for Roanoke. This was not just a military garrison but families seeking to start new lives. John White, an artist and experienced navigator, was chosen as governor. His daughter Eleanor White Dare traveled with him, along with her husband Ananias Dare. They dreamed of building a lasting English colony. Part 4. Arrival and Struggles. When the settlers arrived in July 1587, they quickly discovered problems. The fort from the first colony was abandoned and in disrepair. Relations with native tribes were still strained. Some were openly hostile. Food supplies were scarce. Tensions rose almost immediately. One colonist, George Howe, was killed while searching for crabs on the shore. Despite this, the colonists pressed on, repairing buildings and planting crops. They knew survival would be difficult. Part 5. The Birth of Virginia Dare. On August 18, 1587, Eleanor White Dare gave birth to a daughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. Her birth was celebrated as a symbol of hope and permanence. For many back in England, Virginia Dare represented the beginning of a new nation. Her fate, however, would become as mysterious as the colony itself. Part 6. John White's Departure. By late summer, it was clear the colony desperately needed more supplies. The settlers urged Governor White to return to England to secure provisions. Reluctant to leave his family, especially his newborn granddaughter, White eventually agreed. He sailed back to England in late 1587, expecting to return within months. But fate intervened. Part 7. Delayed by war. When White reached England, he found his country on the brink of war. Spain, angered by English raids and support for rebels in the Netherlands, was preparing its armada, a massive fleet intended to invade England. All English ships were commandeered for defense. White pleaded for a supply run to Roanoke, but the war made it impossible. For 3 long years, White was unable to return to his family and colony. Part 8. Return to an empty colony. In 1590, John White finally secured passage back to Roanoke. When he arrived on August 18th, his granddaughter Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday, he found the settlement eerily deserted. The houses had been dismantled, not destroyed. There were no signs of battle, no graves, no human remains. On a post carved into the wood was a single word, CROATOAN. On another tree, the letters CRO were etched. White had left instructions before departing. If the colonists moved, they should carve their destination into a tree, and if it was forced, they should add a cross symbol. There was no cross. White believed they had relocated to CROATOAN Island, today known as Hatteras Island, where friendly natives lived. But bad weather and dwindling supplies prevented White from searching further. He returned to England and never saw his family or the colonists again. The lost colony was never found. Part 9. The Vanishing. When John White found Roanoke deserted in 1590, he faced an eerie silence. No colonists, no bodies, no evidence of a massacre. The houses and fortifications appeared carefully dismantled, not destroyed. It was as if the settlers had chosen to leave deliberately. The only clue was the word CROATOAN, carved into a post, and the letters CRO on a nearby tree. There was no distress signal, no cross mark. White believed they had moved peacefully to CROATOAN Island. Yet storms and dwindling resources forced him to return to England before he could confirm this. The trail went cold. Part 10. Theories of the disappearance. Over the centuries, dozens of theories have attempted to explain the colonists' fate. 1. Integration with the Croatoans. The most widely accepted theory is that the colonists moved south to CROATOAN Island, modern Hatteras, and assimilated with the friendly Croatoan tribe. Supporting evidence. The word CROATOAN itself. Later reports of native tribes with light hair and blue eyes. Archaeological finds on Hatteras Island, including English tools repurposed by natives. This theory suggests the colonists did not die suddenly, but slowly merged into local communities. 2. Spanish attack. At the time, Spain controlled much of the Caribbean and Florida. Spanish forces, hostile to English expansion, may have destroyed the Roanoke colony. Spain had maps of the region and knew of Raleigh's attempts. Yet no record of a Spanish raid has been found. Still, the possibility lingers. The colonists may have been wiped out in a silent act of war. 3. Starvation and disease. The colonists arrived with limited food and struggled to farm on Roanoke's sandy soil. Relations with local tribes were tense, cutting off trade. It is possible they succumbed to famine or disease and moved inland in desperation. Archaeologists later found signs of drought during the exact years the colony vanished, supporting this grim possibility. 4. Violent conflict with natives. While the Croatoans were allies, other tribes were hostile. It is possible the colonists fell victim to an attack. Yet no evidence of battle was found. If the colonists were slaughtered, where were the bodies, the weapons, the destruction? The peaceful dismantling of the fort argues against this. 5. Lost at sea. Some suggest the colonists attempted to sail back to England on their own, building boats from dismantled structures. If so, they may have been lost in the treacherous Atlantic. The lack of wreckage or survivor accounts makes this difficult to prove. 6. Supernatural theories. As with any great mystery, folklore and supernatural ideas grew. Some claimed witches cursed the colony. Others spoke of ghosts haunting the Outer Banks. A few even tied the mystery to Bermuda Triangle-like vanishings centuries later. While fanciful, these theories reveal how deeply Roanoke captured the imagination. Part 11. Virginia Dare and Legend. The figure of Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World, became central to Roanoke's myth. Stories circulated that she survived and grew up among native tribes. One legend claimed she was transformed into a white doe by a sorcerer, forever roaming the forests of North Carolina. Hunters said they glimpsed the ghostly deer, a symbol of innocence lost. Virginia Dare became both a historical figure and a folk legend, the embodiment of a colony vanished but not forgotten. Part 12. Later expeditions and searches. For decades after, explorers sought the lost colony. In 1607, Jamestown settlers heard rumors of Europeans living with tribes farther south. Captains reported sightings of fair-skinned natives. Maps noted villages with possible English influence. Yet no definitive proof emerged. Centuries later, archaeologists continued the hunt. Excavations on Hatteras Island uncovered artifacts, a signet ring, a sword hilt, gun parts, suggesting English presence. Still, the complete fate of the colonists remains elusive. Part 13. The Dare Stones. In 1937, a strange artifact surfaced. A stone inscribed with a message supposedly from Eleanor Dare, Virginia's mother. The carving claimed most of the colonists had died from disease and attacks, and that only a handful survived. Later stones were discovered, but many were proven to be hoaxes. The first stone, however, is still debated. Was it genuine, or just a clever forgery? Part 14. The Legacy of Roanoke. The lost colony has endured for centuries because it embodies uncertainty. It was England's first real attempt to plant a permanent settlement. Its disappearance highlighted the dangers of colonization: isolation, conflict, starvation, abandonment. For Americans, the story became folklore. Virginia Dare as a symbol of innocence. CROATOAN as a mysterious, almost mystical word. The colony as a reminder that history does not always provide closure. Roanoke shaped the mythology of America before America even existed. Part 15. Modern fascination. Even today, historians, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists debate Roanoke. Was it peaceful assimilation? A massacre? A desperate voyage gone wrong? The truth may never be known. The waters of the Outer Banks, the shifting sands, and the passing centuries have erased the evidence. Yet the mystery survives because it captures the imagination, an unsolved puzzle at the dawn of a nation. Conclusion. In 1587, 115 men, women, and children set out to build a new life on Roanoke Island. By 1590, they were gone. All that remained was a single word, carved into wood: CROATOAN. Their fate has been debated for over 400 years. Perhaps they found new lives with native tribes. Perhaps they perished. Perhaps the ocean claimed them.